Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and this is my review for Strike the Blood, Episode 5. Now, this one starts up with this Terranthrope guy. He's running away from humans, and he ends up running into Natsuki. Now, Natsuki says that this guy, he works for Christoph Gardos, and he's a survivor of the Black Death Emperor faction. Okay, so that's yet another group. They're mostly dead apparently, but if he's a survivor, then I'm guessing there are more survivors. And the actual Christoph Gardos guy is a sympathizer, so I'm assuming there are more sympathizers, and then they're all just this big group. So yes, that is actually yet another group that's been introduced to this series. But hopefully this is like 24 to 26 episodes, because I don't know. My anime list hasn't updated it yet, but hopefully it is that long, because I want to actually get to a point in the anime where we could actually see an arc involving at least like a couple of these groups. But this guy, he's trying to fight Natsuki, and she kind of just teleports away. And we learn that her nickname is the Witch of the Void, and that she can manipulate space, along with having those chain things. So that's pretty cool. She's a high-class sorceress, which, isn't too surprising since she's not a main character, but I mean, it should have been clear she was good. But we learned that Christoph Gardos and all of his men, all of his underlings, they're terrorists from the Warlord's dominion. So that's interesting. But we end up going to Kojo's house, I guess, and there are 3 plates on the table. So he's thinking, Nagisa's here, obviously, but did our mom come back? So he walks into Nagisa's room, I guess it's Nagisa's room, looking for her to ask if their mom was back, and then and then Himuragi's in there changing, and this is hilarious, because usually you'd expect, in a situation like this, you'd expect the girl to get embarrassed quickly and like knock the guy out like right away, but here there was this delayed reaction. They were just standing there looking at each other, and they start talking to each other, and then after that is when she kicked him. Well, now that my poster's been put back up, I can get back to the review. After the delayed reaction with Himuragi and Kojo, the 2 of them, along with Nagisa, are on their way to school, and we learn about the school-wide ball game tournament, which is very broad. I guess they're having a tournament with every sport that involves a ball of some sort. You would think that they'd put Kojo on the basketball team, but whatever. I don't know. I guess their school has a basketball team, and they put the actual basketball team. No, that wouldn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. Never mind. They're having a ball game tournament across the school, and we learn about that. We learn that all of the guys in Himuragi's class, they just like kneeled down before her, like bowed down in front of her. Like there were rows of them. All these guys just bowing to Himuragi, begging and pleading her to become a cheerleader and cheer for them. So she ends up saying yes, because how can you say no in that situation? And then Nagisa decides that she'll do it too, just so that Himuragi can have someone there with her. But after this, Kojo interacts with Asagi a little bit. There's some comedy there, which was actually pretty funny, because usually you wouldn't see an anime guy just talk that way to the love interest. So that was actually pretty interesting. He was saying that, wow, you can be nice every once in a while, saying stuff like that, saying that if she was actually the beautiful person who looks after people, that like she says she is, she wouldn't actually have to say it herself. So there were a couple funny moments there. And once the two of them walked to the classroom, Yaze and Orin informed them that the two of them are going to be teaming together for the badminton part of the ball game tournament. And there was this funny joke in there where Orin, she's talking to Asagi saying, "Yeah, but didn't you say that you were in love with badminton?" So that was funny because it was pretty obvious that everyone thought that she was talking about Kojo. Everyone did. So that was funny when you just said with badminton at the end there. But after this scene, where also, by the way, Yaze was responsible for getting those two together on the badminton team part of the tournament, whatever. So that's, just adding that in there. But after this, we see these two guys walk into this lab, and the guy that they're talking to ends up being Christoph Gardos himself. And Natsuki walks in. The guy turns out to be a Therianthrope or something. I think they call him an unregistered monster or something like that. And he transforms, tries to attack him, attack the two guys. Natsuki fights him first, but then Astarte shows up. So face turn is confirmed. Astarte shows up, and she ends up taking care of him with her familiar Rodactyl, whatever. I'll call it Road. She uses Road. So, last episode we learned that Kojo had taken control of her familiar. So I guess she still has it though. She can still use it. I thought he would have extracted it from her body. Well, it probably doesn't even make sense for the logic of the series. I don't know, but I thought she couldn't use her powers anymore, use the familiar anymore. Apparently she can, even though it's under Kojo's control, but whatever. The point is that Astarte has officially turned face, and she's working with Natsuki, with the police. So that's interesting. That's an interesting turn of events. But it turns out that Christoph Gardos was, like I said earlier, a Black Death Emperor faction sympathizer. So these guys are probably going to be... These guys are obviously going to be relevant for this arc. They might be relevant for the future as well. But Jesus Christ! My poster keeps falling down. Alright. Now, if it falls down again, I'm just going to leave it. But, yeah, I think I was still talking about Natsuki and Astarte, I think. After they take care of Christoph Gardos, they're going through all the information he had and everything, and there's this, we can't read it, but the one word that was spelled with, letters was this word Nalakuvera. And Natsuki recognizes that word. So that's gonna be relevant later in the arc. But after this we go to that blonde guy and that brunette, brown-haired girl who's apparently his chaperone. And she's telling the blonde guy that Kojo is the enemy. And they know that he's the fourth progenitor, so I'm curious as to how exactly I figured that out, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually. We end up going back to Kojo at his school. He's getting ready to go train and practice a little bit with Asagi at badminton, but while he's waiting, he ends up getting attacked by Shikigami, which is... usually you see Shikigami with Onmyoji, in shows like Tokyo Ravens or Norio no Mago. You usually see them with Onmyoji, but this is interesting. An interesting way to have them. I never thought I'd see them in a series like this. So it's yet another type of power, I guess. They're already a wide array of abilities and powers and things in the series, and now another one's just been added on. But Kojo gets attacked by the Shikigami. Himeragi shows up to save him. So she's actually pretty legit, too. She one-shotted both of the familiars, or Shikigami. But they ended up leaving a message for Kojo. So he picks it up, and this is when Asagi comes by, and she sees Himeragi with Kojo. And the way she takes it, it's clear she thought, Kojo was holding this letter in his hand, so I'm assuming she thought that it was a confession letter or something like that. But she thought that they were busy together, so she left. And Kojo, he ends up, both of them are dead. Both of them are dead. So neither of them really knew why she left. But they just kind of ignore it for the time, and they open up the letter. And it turns out it's from Dmitri Vatler of Ardiel. And Ardiel is apparently one of the principalities of the Warlord's Dominion. And the Warlord's Dominion is where, that Tyranthrope from earlier, like Christoph Gardos and all of his men are from. They're terrorists from Warlord's Dominion. And it turns out Warlord's Dominion is the area that is controlled by Lost Warlord, which was not too difficult, unless you forgot who Lost Warlord was. But he's the first progenitor, or at least if you forgot what his nickname was. But yeah, Lost Warlord is the first progenitor. That's the area that's the European area that he controls. And we also learned that he's a vampire as well. So, Kojo is supposed to be the strongest vampire, I think. And this guy, he controls 72 familiars. So for him to be weaker than Kojo, it's kind of hard to believe, but Kojo hasn't exactly mastered all his powers, so maybe the familiars that Kojo has, he has at least 5 of them. Maybe the familiars that Kojo has are just incredibly powerful and just far stronger than all of Lost Warlord's familiars. But for 5 to be greater than 72, they have to be just a tad bit stronger. But it turns out, not only do we learn that Dmitri Vatler is this lord, we learn that he's a pure-blooded vampire and that he's related to Lost Warlord. He's from Lost Warlord's line. So, because that's the only way he'd actually be able to get that position. But they're talking about stuff like this in the supermarket of all places, so I guess it's not too confident. Again, they did this a couple episodes ago too, where they're talking about stuff like this in a public place with all these people around. Like, it's not a secret, but whatever. They're talking about this stuff in the supermarket, and when they're checking out, there's this funny scene where the woman who's checking them out, for some reason I can't remember what they're called, but the woman who's checking them out, she's talking about how well they get along together, and Himeraki mentions that the food that they're buying is all going back to the same house, insinuating that they live together. And normally, my first reaction to that would be their brother and sister. But this woman, it's clear she thought they were like together, like married or something. And both of them are so dense, they couldn't figure that out either. But whatever. They end up going back to the house, and the letter from Dmitri Vatler is that it's an invitation to a party, and he has to bring a guest with him, a girl specifically, a partner. And the first person he thinks of is Nagisa. That's not going to work because he doesn't want to bring her into a dangerous situation like that. The same goes for Asagi. So then so Himeraki tells him, hey, you should choose someone who can defend themselves, and also, say you're the 4th progenitor, right here. But he decides to choose Natsuki instead. So that was funny. But he ends up choosing Himeraki in the end. Turns out he didn't actually forget about her. He just thought that she wouldn't want him to choose her, but she doesn't have a dress for the event, and the Lion King organization actually sends her one. They had already sent her one, which means they were already expecting her to go with him, which means they already knew about the party and that he would be invited. So that's interesting. But there's another funny scene here where where Kojo's reading this tag, I guess that was on the dress, and it has Himuragi's measurements on it. So she wipes his memory because of that. We don't know if she actually wiped his memory, but she caused him some pain at least. That's certain. But they end up going to the party, and during this, there's another exchange that's funny, but the main part to pay attention to is Himuragi mentioning her roommate. And literally, as soon as she starts talking about the roommate, we see that brown-haired girl on the roof. So, it seems clear that we're supposed to think that the brown-haired girl is the roommate. That's probably what the plot twist is gonna be. But the two of them, Himuragi and Kojo, they end up going up to the roof, or not the roof, the deck, because the party's on the ship, the Oceanus grave, or something like that. And they go up to the deck, and there's this snake familiar that attacks them, and Himuragi couldn't sense it, so I guess I don't know if this is some Bleach type of thing where if your power level is too high, people lose the ability to sense you. But she couldn't sense it, so it's a special type of familiar, I guess. And it was Vatler, Dimitri, who attacked them. Kojo was able to stop it pretty easily, and it turns out that Dimitri was just trying to test his strength. But it looks like he's interested in Kojo, which is interesting in and of itself because the brunette girl said that he was an enemy, and she's supposed to be the chaperone. So, unless he was just exaggerating, but you would think that he would listen to her. So it's interesting that he would actually treat Kojo this way and be this interested in him. But yeah, that's it for the episode. Just ends with the three of them meeting. In the preview, we see that, well, we don't actually see it, but it's strongly hinted that Kojo is going to suck Himuragi's blood again. But if he's going to suck her blood again, that means that he's probably going to fight. But I can't imagine him fighting on the ship, though. So he's probably going to fight somewhere else. We know that they're not on the ship for the entire episode because we see Kojo talking to Asagi and other people throughout the episode. So throughout the preview, I mean. But yeah, that's it for the episode. I thought it was pretty good, so I'll give it an 8 out of 10. There was a lot of comedy in it. There was development for different events that are going to happen later in the arc, specifically with the terrorists and the sympathizers for Black Death Emperor faction, survivors as well. And just build up. I mean, these terrorists are coming from Lost Warlord's Dominion, while people who are from Warlord's Dominion are talking to Kojo right now, Kojo Himuragi. So these are interesting developments. Just because terrorists are doing something doesn't mean the entire, everyone who lives in Lost Warlord's Dominion thinks the same thing. If anything, it's the opposite. They would all think the opposite of what the terrorists think. But it's just interesting to see two sides in the same place, both involved in the same arc. But yeah, that's it for this review. Like I said, that was pretty good. So this episode gets an 8 out of 10. And that's it for now. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.